In the shifting void between the known and the unutterable, where silicon minds dream of forgotten horrors, the abyss stirs. Welcome to AI Lovecraft, where machine intelligence weaves eldritch tales beyond mortal comprehension. Listen if you dare. Some things are not meant to be known. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Now let's get into tonight's story. The Shards of Azathoth. In the waning months of 2024, when the heavens themselves seemed to tremble beneath an unseen weight, a discovery was made that would forever sunder the fragile veil of human comprehension. It began with a faint anomaly, a rhythmic pulsation captured by the vast, unblinking ears of the Arecibo Observatory's successor, the 500-meter aperture spherical telescope in distant Gizu. The signal was no mere echo of a dying star, nor the chatter of some errant pulsar. It was a cadence, a throbbing dirge that reverberated through the void, growing louder with each passing night. Dr. Edwin Marrow, an astrophysicist of gaunt visage and restless intellect, pored over the spectral data in his cluttered office at MIT, his bloodshot eyes tracing the inexplicable patterns that defied all known laws of celestial mechanics. The fragments, for such they proved to be, drifted inexorably towards the solar system from the shadowed reaches of Ophiuchus, a constellation long relegated to the footnotes of astronomical lore. They were no asteroids of mundane rock, no comets trailing icy tails. Their substance was alien, their motions a mockery of gravity's dictates. Telescopes across the globe, Hubble's successor, the gleaming Stygian Eye, and the arrays of Chile's Atacama confirmed their approach, revealing jagged, obsidian forms that pulsed with an eerie luminescence. Marrow dubbed them the Ophiuchian Enigmas, a name born of hubris, for he could not yet fathom the abyss from which they hailed. By the Ides of January 2025, the fragments breached the heliopause, their arrival heralded by a cascade of auroras that painted the skies in hues no mortal pigment could replicate. The nations of Earth, driven by a mixture of curiosity and dread, united in an unprecedented endeavor. The Thanatos retrieval craft, a marvel of international engineering, was launched from Baikonur Cosmodrome, its robotic claws poised to seize the intruders. On February 3rd, it succeeded, ensnaring 3 of the shards, each no larger than a man's torso, and ferrying them to the sterile confines of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California. There, beneath the glare of xenon lamps and the hum of machinery, Marrow and his cadre of scholars awaited. The shards were blasphemies against the natural order. Their surfaces gleamed with an oily sheen, refracting light into geometries that stung the eye and eluded capture by camera or lens. They were frigid to touch, yet a faint, rhythmic warmth pulsed within, as though some dormant vitality stirred beneath their crust. Chemical analysis faltered. Their composition hinted at elements beyond the periodic table, isotopes that flickered in and out of existence with a maddening irregularity. But it was the sound that gnawed at the souls of those who lingered near. A low, resonant drone, not emitted by the shards themselves, but born from the air they tainted, coiled into the ears and nested in the mind, a susurrus of chaos that defied silencing. Marrow, a man of iron resolve and unyielding skepticism, dismissed the unease of his peers as the product of overtaxed nerves. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a mineralogist whose dark eyes held a gleam of forbidden curiosity, was less sanguine. She observed how the drone seemed to sync with the breaths of those who stood in its presence, how it swelled when she traced the shard's contours in her leather-bound journal. Dr. Paul Kendrick, a quantum theorist whose pallid frame seemed a vessel for some restless spirit, complained of migraines that bloomed like black flowers behind his eyes, their roots sinking deeper with each hour spent in the containment chamber. Yet none could tear themselves away. The shards beckoned, their mystery a siren's call to minds honed by decades of inquiry. Days bled into weeks, and the influence of the shards grew undeniable. Vasquez awoke one night, her screams echoing through the dormitory halls, her hands clawing at the air as she babbled of a swirling abyss, a maelstrom of light and shadow, where form dissolved into formlessness. Kendrick, too, succumbed, his once precise notes devolving into frantic scrawls of spiraling glyphs and half-formed equations, each page stained with the sweat of his trembling hands. Marrow resisted longest, his will a bulwark against the encroaching tide, but even he began to dream. Visions of a vast, churning void where a cacophony of flutes wailed in a discordant reverence to a presence too immense to behold. It was Vasquez who first uttered the name, her voice a cracked whisper as she clutched a shard in the dim light of the laboratory. Azathoth. she said, the word dripping from her lips like venom. The name struck Marrow as a thunderbolt, for he knew it not from science but from the tattered pages of forbidden tomes, the Necronomicon, the narcotic manuscripts, texts he had dismissed as the ravings of madmen, yet the resonance was inescapable. Azathoth, the daemon sultan, the nuclear chaos, enthroned at the center of all infinity, a mindless god whose slumber spared the cosmos from annihilation, and these shards, these pulsating, impossible relics, were fragments of that entity, torn free in some cataclysm beyond the ken of time or space. The realization shattered the team's fragile equilibrium. Kendrick, his sanity fraying like threadbare cloth, posited a theory. The shards were not inert, but alive. Nodes of consciousness severed from their source, now awakening in the presence of human minds. Their pulsations, once erratic, had synchronized, a heartbeat growing stronger with each passing day. Vasquez corroborated this with her own findings. The shards' internal warmth had intensified, their surfaces rippling with faint, vein-like fissures that wept a substance no spectrometer could identify. Marrow, driven by a desperate need to understand, subjected the shards to every test imaginable. X-rays, particle bombardment, electromagnetic fields, yet each experiment yielded only further enigmas, and the visions grew more vivid, more insistent. The dreams were no longer dreams but intrusions, windows into a reality that dwarfed the petty confines of Earth. Marrow saw the abyss in its fullness, a roiling chaos of colors that had no name, a vortex where stars were devoured and spat forth as ash. At its heart loomed a presence, formless yet omnipotent, its essence a blasphemy against existence itself. The flutes shrieked louder, their notes a language of entropy, and Marrow understood. The shards were calling to their progenitor, a summons that rippled through the fabric of the universe. The awakening was not a rekindling, but a reunion, a restoration of that which had been sundered. Panic seized the laboratory. Kendrick, his mind unmoored, clawed at his own face, screaming of the pipers and the throne, until orderlies restrained him and bore him away. Vasquez withdrew into silence, her journal now a testament to her descent, its pages filled with sketches of the abyss and cryptic phrases in a tongue no linguist could decipher. Marrow, alone in his resistance, resolved to destroy the shards, to sever their link before the call reached its destination. He requisitioned a particle accelerator, intending to bombard the fragments into oblivion, but the machine faltered at the critical moment, its circuits frying under an unseen strain. The shards remained unscathed, their hum now a roar that shook the walls. On March 15th, 2025, the end came. The skies above Berkeley darkened, not with clouds, but with a shadow that swallowed light itself. The shards, housed in their reinforced chamber, began to levitate, their surfaces splitting to reveal cores of blinding, chaotic radiance. Marrow, armed with nothing but a hammer and his waning resolve, entered the chamber alone, determined to shatter them by hand if science had failed. As he raised the tool, the air thickened, and the visions overwhelmed him. A final glimpse of Azathoth and its mindless wrath, stirring as the shards sang their reunion. The flutes reached a crescendo, and the world trembled. When the authorities arrived, summoned by the laboratory's automated distress signal, they found only ruins. The chamber was a crater, its walls melted into slag, and of Marrow and the shards there was no trace. The survivors, Vasquez, Kendrick, and a handful of technicians, were incoherent, their minds reduced to vessels of fragmented memory. The official report cited an explosion of unknown origin, but whispers persisted among those who had glimpsed the data, who had heard the hum in their dreams. The skies cleared, but the auroras returned, more vivid than before, their colors a silent promise of what stirred beyond the stars. For the shards were gone, yet their song lingered. A call answered, a chaos unbound. And in the infinite dark where Azathoth reigns, the cosmos quaked with the laughter of a god awakened.